Welcome to the North Shore Performance Podcast, where we take a deep dive into health and fitness for everyday people and the athlete in all of us. I am your host, Jake Wirtz, and with me is my best friend and co-host, Tanner Schenkel. Together, we take an honest look at fitness and discuss how anybody can improve their lives by adopting a healthy lifestyle. Welcome back to another edition of the North Shore Performance Podcast. Today, our topic is we're going to continue the beginner series, and we're going to talk about gym etiquette, stuff that you might not be told outright. And as a newbie, it's important to know when you walk into the gym for the first time. And these are just some 10 basically unwritten rules that Tanner and I are going to go through. It kind of sheds some light on some of the important things that you might want to avoid while you're in the gym for the first time.
Yeah, and these things are going to just help you make your overall gym experience better, because you're already going in there kind of like nervous about, you obviously don't want to step on any toes or do anything like that. So I mean, it's just gonna, if you kind of go into the gym understanding these like unwritten rules, it's going to make your gym experience better, because people are going to be more friendly towards you, because you're not that idiotic kid or person just making a havoc in the gym. You're just you're being courteous, which is important. So,
and like Tanner said, you don't want to be that guy. You're already nervous going into it, probably. You're not really sure what you're doing. You're a little lacking in confidence. Maybe that's where you're trying to go to the gym and to improve yourself, but you don't want to be that guy. You're already going to be self-conscious, bringing more attention to yourself for doing stupid things that you might not think are stupid.
Exactly. So the first one we're going to touch on is kind of one of my biggest pet peeves. And no offense to the older population, but you kind of, it's kind of like stereotypical with the older generation. Is like leaving your stuff to save equipment. So you have like, there's a water bottle in one, a sweatshirt in the other, and you're like, oh, I'm supersetting. And it's like, well, you've been supersetting the last 2 hours. Like, I don't really understand what you're doing. So like, if you're leaving your stuff to hold, like, don't try to hog like multiple, like I think 2, 3 at the most, and 3's pushing it.
3 is pushing it.
Yeah, like if it's slow day at the gym, there's not a lot of people, you can probably get away with it. But like if someone like is trying to work in and like wondering about like, hey, like be courteous and be like, yeah, because if you understand you're hogging the equipment, especially in gyms that are smaller and don't have multiple squat racks, benches, stuff like that, like you got to be courteous and let people work in, because they're trying to get a workout in too. And if you're hogging stuff, like just be aware. So yeah, especially like, and if you're taking way too long at like, I don't know, like some guys, what seems like they're there for 3 hours, like they bring a lunch, they're there so long and they're taking up the squat rack the whole time. Just be courteous and understand your surroundings. Like if there's people clearly look like they're waiting, like see if they want to work in. Or you have those guys that are like curling in a squat rack. Also, it's like using
that's a whole unwritten rule on its own. That's a cardinal sin.
Yeah. But it's
don't
like
be that guy
unless you got a garage gym, because it's like then you just curl it because you're
it's your squat rack. Yeah. This list isn't for you if you have your own home gym.
Yeah,
that's different.
But like I think along with curling in the squat rack, like using the equipment for its like intended use. Like don't be using like the machine next to you as a coat rack, or like you're like stretching against it. Like if people want to use it for its intended use, like just be courteous. I mean, that's like a lot of these are going to go back to is being just courteous of your surroundings. Yeah. And then like I already touched on before, like if you're supersetting, like be efficient as possible, like get in, get out with your superset
and make it obvious that you're supersetting. Like if you're using something across the gym from each other, nobody knows that you're using something, and then they start to work in. Like you can't get mad when somebody works in if you're all the way on the other side of the gym. Like, hey, I'm using that. It's like, no, bro, get out of here. Get out of here with that crap.
Exactly. And that's when you just have a conversation like, hey, can I work in? Like we work, because like when I'm doing this, like try to just work as a team. Like everyone's in there with a goal in mind, trying to get in, trying to get out. Like just communicate, be courteous. The biggest things with, I would say, tip 1 with like hogging equipment and just not being annoying.
Yeah, like you said, I think the biggest thing too is like if you're in a smaller gym. So for example, one of the gyms I train at, depending on what's most convenient for me that day, is there's a small Anytime here in my hometown. and it's got one squat rack, one bench, no deadlift platform. So like if I'm getting in there, like it's already like my last choice as far as gyms go because it doesn't have a ton of equipment. But if somebody's in the squat rack and they're not using it, like you said, for its intended purpose, and squats, usually those take a long time because people take longer rest periods. It could be 20 minutes before I get into that thing. And, there might be somebody who's got next. So I got to wait for that guy's set. And so just be courteous. It's okay to use the equipment, but if you're going to take long rest periods and you're doing like some heavy powerlifting stuff, maybe go to a powerlifting gym that has multiple squat racks, platforms, and benches. Like the one that we went up to the weekend you came down for the Twins game. That one had like 6 of everything and it was perfect. So you could have as many people doing whatever they wanted. In a situation like that, it's less important. You said something as well that reminded me of a story using something as a coat rack. So there was an old guy at 365 in Elk River. I remember this guy, and he would work out in jeans and a black t-shirt, like tucked in, and he had like the gold chain, like he looked like an old mobster. And he always came in like a biker leather jacket, right? And he would literally use equipment as a coat rack for that leather jacket, that brown leather jacket. I remember it to this day. He'd use the leg press. He'd just toss it onto the leg press, walk away. He'd do his little herky jerky curls. He'd look around, he's got his weightlifting gloves on too. I mean, he was just a walking, talking meme. I mean, God bless him. He's in there getting it after it. But the coat rack thing, that gave me some PTSD, honestly. So number one, like Tanner said, hogging equipment. In general, just try not to do it. Be courteous of others. Let other people work in. Number two, be aware of your surroundings. So this is, again, some common sense, just general awareness, but make sure you're not in other people's space when they're working out. A really small unwritten rule that doesn't seem like a big deal, and it really isn't. But if somebody's using like the mirror, if they're curling or if they're doing overhead press or whatever, if they're using the mirror to watch their form or watch themselves, try not to walk in between them during their set. It's a really small thing, but anybody who has been in the gym long enough knows when you're in the middle of your set, there's like a given like space around you that nobody's supposed to walk through. And that includes in between you and the mirror, just so that we can watch your form and safely execute and exercise without somebody accidentally running into you, like, or tripping into you or breaking your focus. I mean, you should be able to focus anyway, but I mean, stuff happens. So just don't do that. Allow others to work in again, if you can. If you're using a lat pull down machine and somebody's like, hey man, can I get in on that just real quick for a couple sets? We can go every other. Yeah. Be aware of that. Let people do that. Don't. And here's another thing too. This is especially beginners and young high school boys are the worst at this. And I think you know where I'm going to go with this. If you have 3, 4, 5 of you guys and you're all just like, again, swarming around a piece of equipment, like a bench or a deadlift platform or squat rack, you guys are the biggest asshats in the gym 9 times out of 10, because you're drawing all this attention to yourself. You're taking up all the space. Your gym bags are spread out everywhere, and you're just in everybody's way. And if you're over by the dumbbells and the adjustable benches and stuff, I mean, they're usually taking up 3 or 4 pieces of equipment and they're all hanging out, and it's just impossible to get through there. So just be aware of your surroundings, be courteous to others. Again, common sense stuff. But yeah, that's kind of it for tip number 2. Be aware of your surroundings.
I have something to touch on too, like along with like the mirror part of it. Like say someone's squatting and like some of those racks will have like the plate holders on the side. Like if they're in the middle of a set and they're squatting, don't go and take like a plate off the rack because of that they're squatting in, because like, especially if they're squatting heavy, like that's
break their focus.
Yeah. Like we have a good buddy, we have a gym chat, and that happens to him all the time because he refuses to work out anywhere besides anytime. And like nothing against anytime, but usually you get some people that don't follow these tips and tricks that we recommend.
They just lack the savvy that you guys will after watching this episode.
Exactly. And he gets so frustrated, but some of it's kind of on your own fault, Chris, if you're listening to this, that you only go to anytime. Because
listen, the least believable part of that story is Chris squatting. I'm just going to say that.
That's true. He's got small legs. But like, if you think about just all around like gym quality, like obviously the worst ever is Planet Fitness. I mean, I think everyone can agree with that.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
But if like sometimes it's close. Like there's some nice anytimes out there, but like I think if you take the general anytime experience, it's pretty close. So
I think they're okay, honestly, for the general population. It's just you have a specific set of needs being a power lifter and somebody who's extremely serious about that. You know, most of those gyms are not outfitted for those kind of lifters, and that's fine. You have to find something that's more suitable for what you want, or have your own home gym like you do. But in general, I agree with you. They're not my favorite gym. I don't go to them unless I have to. But the nice thing about Anytime is the convenience factor as well, because they're all over the country. If you go on a trip, or if you're, you know, working in the cities or something and you live far away, there's like 6 Anytimes you'll pass on your way to work. So not to completely crap on them, just to defend them a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, they're good for what they are, but take it with a grain of salt. So the next tip we have is don't be a creep. So this is like notorious for like the guys taking pictures of girls squatting and stuff like that. Like I think that's what everything one thinks about. But like there's just have common courtesy. Like don't stare at people lifting. Like say a big guy comes in, don't just sit there like staring at him, make him uncomfortable, because like big guys have feelings too. Like they're actually usually teddy bears. But it just like don't be that guy. If you want it done to you, don't do it to like. Just don't be weird, because it's especially with dudes. Like, come on, like you're giving a lot of gym bros a bad rap just based on how you are in the gym. Like, don't be weird. Most girls aren't going to the gym to get hit on. Like, they're not trying to find their next
99.9% of the time. That's the case.
Yeah.
Like it's exceedingly rare for it to be the opposite.
Like, I think I'm rewatching. So if you guys have Peacock, the streaming service, they're doing like extended editions of The Office. Both me and Wertz are huge Office friends or fans. So I'm in the 5th season, and that's when Michael Scott meets Holly, and that's like he has a huge crush on her, and Jim convinces Michael Scott, to be a friend first. And like when it comes to potential relationship in the gym, maybe be a gym friend first instead of being a creep is, I guess, a good round of advice. But it's
relationship advice on the pod. I like it.
Dropping the knowledge. But it again, so like that's like what everyone thinks about first. There's also just decency and like locker room etiquette. So like
the old guy in the corner, I think we all know what we're talking about.
There's multiple stories I have when I worked out in the public gym about old men in locker rooms. And like, I get it. You've been around many years. You really don't care anymore. I get it. Sure. But like, have some common decency. Like
sometimes you just gotta let it air out, I guess.
Not even that, just hygiene, and just there's so many stories that we don't need to go over on the podcast. But if you find yourself in those situations, just be like, hey, let's be courteous of other people around me. Again, like I said, a lot of these are going to be just courteous and understand your surroundings, understanding, hey, we're all people that we don't need to see your balls. Like it's okay if like it's just you're switching your towel real quick, sure, but it's like you're just walking around brushing your teeth, walking around the locker room, like put some freaking pants on. Like
this is without a doubt the most passionate I've ever seen you on the podcast. I didn't know you felt this strongly about old man balls.
Between drug addicts constantly almost stealing my stuff in the locker rooms and old men, that's 2 of the biggest drivers that, besides the pandemic, that caused me to get a garage gym.
That's a story for a different podcast.
Yeah.
But I really like this tip. Everyone's at the gym for one reason, and it's to improve themselves. You're trying to get better. Everybody is in there ultimately for that, no matter what they're working on. And you should just focus on you. You know, like Tanner said, people are not going to the gym to get hit on. That's just not a thing. So just focus on your own workout. If you see a beautiful person that's in there, just, you know, acknowledge that they're there and then move on with your life. Everybody's just trying to get better. So tip number 4, clean up after yourself. Again, this seems like common sense 101, but let me paint a picture for you. You've got a guy on a bench. He's getting real sweaty. He's getting after it. He stands up and you can see an outline of his body, including those cheeks, if you know what I mean. There's just a cheek print on the bench. And then he walks away. And then the next sorry sap that's trying to use that bench walks up and he sees a set of cheeks on that bench. That's disgusting. Clean up after yourself. Wipe down the equipment when you're done. Just, especially if you're a person that sweats a lot. It's summertime right now, so gyms are kind of hot, and we all sweat, but just wipe off equipment when you're done. Also put your weights away. That's another big thing. Re-rack your weights. I think every gym I train at has a sign that says re-rack your weights. If you're strong enough to use it, you're strong enough to put it back, or something along those lines. It's a courtesy thing. Put the weights back where you found them. Don't just put them randomly on a weight tree either. Put the 10s with the 10s, put the 25s with the 25s, so on, so forth. Just be courteous, clean up after yourself. If you are using a bunch of chalk, for example, which is fine. I use a lot of chalk sometimes, depending on the day. If you put chalk on a bench or on a bar or something like that, just try to clean up after yourself. Again, don't make a huge mess. And that's why some gyms don't even allow for chalk. It's a cleanliness thing, which I think is ridiculous, because chalk is a safety thing first and foremost. But some gyms don't want to allow it. Like we said, we've been picking on Anytime a little bit, but Planet Fitness too. Those gyms don't allow chalk, I don't think, because it's messy and most gym members don't want to deal with it. So if you use stuff like that, clean up after yourself, put your weights away, wipe down your equipment when you're done, and just use common sense in that regard. If you wouldn't want it done to you, don't do it to somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the gym employees and other gym goers aren't your parents. Like, the easiest way for someone that goes to the gym every day, like a regular, getting frustrated with you, is if you leave a mess. I remember my brother lives up in Bemidji, Minnesota, and they have one of the most beautiful gym I have ever seen. Like, it was so nice. But I remember we were there and the owner or employee came in and she was super frustrated because they came in after like a long weekend and there was just clothes and shoes everywhere. And she voiced her opinion. She's like, well, it's these young kids that just come up and they treat it like it's their house. And it's like, think about, like, if you were an employee there, would you want to have to be cleaning up everyone's mess? Like, Sure, there's something, part of the responsibility is making sure the gym's clean. But if there's something super easy that you can do to help them out, they're also going to be more than, it gives them time to get better equipment, to make sure equipment is working properly. Like, that's cleaning up after you takes time out of their day where they can be putting it into things to make your gym experience much better. So again, just clean up after yourself. Like, it's not hard. Like where it said, if you're strong enough to pick up the weights, you're strong enough to put them away.
Yeah, it's extra sets. That's an extra volume, as they say.
Yeah, you just don't have to program it. So the next one is, don't be the loud guy. Like, we get it if you're taking a max effort lift and you let one out, like just like a grunt out or whatever.
Let what out? Let what out? Can we hear one of your grunts right now on the pod live?
No, I have to be in the zone. But like, just be aware, like, again, with your noise level, like if you're slamming weights, stuff like that, like most gyms aren't going to have like the alarm like Planet Fitness does. It's going to set
alarm.
Yeah, the lunk alarm, whatever, that could set off if you drop weights or make too much noise, but still common courtesy. Like, I think most people understand, like, if you're obviously going for a max effort, but if you're like, I remember this guy when I worked out at the local Y, and he was like curling like 5-pound weights, and it sounded like he was moaning, and it was like, are you having a heart attack? Like, should we be worried? Like, you sound like you're in pain. And he's curling weight that like he shouldn't be struggling that much with, and he wasn't struggling. He just felt like he had to make a noise. I don't know, but if I can hear you through my headphones, you're too loud. Yeah,
it's too loud.
But if it's like a one-time thing, like I look over at you, you're making noise, and you lift it up, and then you're like your normal sets up to that max effort lift, you're quiet, like oh, it's a one, whatever. Like, I get it, like, but if you're constantly like you're warming up and you're grunting, like, come on, you're just doing it for attention at that point.
And that's ultimately what I think it is. It's just like a look at me thing. There are several experiences that I have. I don't know if we have enough time to go through all the grunters and groaners and moaners and screamers that I've dealt with at the gym. And this is honestly my number one pet peeve over anything else that we've talked about on the podcast. This is it for me. This is the number one thing that gets under my skin. Like you said, if you are doing a max effort work or you're doing heavy work, I get it. It slips out. We're all we all do it. It's fine. You know, if you're pulling a deadlift that's like 2.5 times your body weight, have at it, bro. I get it. Go you. But there is a difference if you're doing, you know, working sets, lightweight exercises, and, you know, lightweight, that's a relative term. But I mean, some of these guys that are doing all this crazy noise they're some of the biggest guys at the gym. Sometimes, you know, we got one fella at the gym. I'm not going to offer a description or anything. I'll just say he's a big dude. He's jacked. He's strong as hell. But every single exercise he does, it's like, yeah. After every single rep. And you almost want to you almost feel a little dirty listening to it. Like,
I think I need to make that a sound bite.
Yeah, listen, man. I see this guy over there doing hamstring curls, and that's what it is. It's after every single one. It's like, just stop, dude. You're yacked. You don't need any more attention. Knock it off, dude. And then there are the dudes that are power lifters. And again, if you're doing a max effort work, that's a little different if you let out a grunt. But there's difference between a grunt and a yell. You're in the middle of a set and you're every single rep. And bro, people pay to go to this gym. They don't pay to listen to you. This isn't a concert. Shut the hell up. It just gets my blood boiling just thinking about it. So tip number 6, spot someone when asked. So as a newbie, you might be kind of intimidated by this one, but eventually, if you go long enough, there will come a time and a place in a day where someone asks you for a spot. Most typically, this is going to be on the bench. And if somebody asks you for a spot, you always say yes. I mean, it's just a general courtesy thing, because someday you're going to need a spot on a bench probably. And you try to find somebody who looks like they're strong enough to handle whatever weight you're handling, or they look like they know what they're doing, and you ask them for a spot. And it's a huge compliment if someone asks you for a spot, because it means, hey man, I don't know if I can get this weight. I'm going to trust you with my life here. And it's just a common courtesy thing. It's something you might not know if nobody told you otherwise. So that's why it's on the list. If somebody asks you for a spot, you always spot them.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just returning the favor when if you spot for them, then you're just going to assume that they'll spot for you. And then it creates a relationship that you guys trust each other.
It's a great icebreaker.
Yeah. And it just helps out, just kind of making a one big happy gym family, is like everyone spotting each other, keeping each other safe, and helping push each other to get better. Because like if you have a spot, they're going for usually like a max effort lift that they can push themselves.
It's at least a weight that they're concerned about. Otherwise, they wouldn't be asking for a spot.
Exactly.
Some people don't train with spotters ever. I rarely use the spotter or ask a stranger to spot me unless I'm doing like a heavy single, double, or triple.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, I'm way below my max capacity when I'm doing working sets, so I'm not usually worried about it. But when I get up there, I find somebody that I know is an experienced lifter, and I ask them for a spot, and I've never had anybody say no. But as a newbie, you should not say no. There's only a couple of occasions when it's okay to say no. If you are physically incapable of even handling the weight that's on their bar, right? And take this with a grain of salt, because the guy is still going to be pushing. So really, you're just helping them with the last like 10, 15% of the lift. You don't need to be able to deadlift whatever that guy is benching. You know what I mean? You just need to be strong enough and stable enough to be able to help him up and into the rack. And then another small tip, when you're benching or when you're spotting somebody specifically on the bench, don't touch the bar unless they ask you to, or unless it looks like they're going down. If they actually start going down, you grab it. But if they're grinding, if they're stalled, you kind of let them struggle through it for a little bit. You might put your hands underneath it, but you do not touch the bar until the bar starts to go down or they ask you to grab it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good piece of advice, because a lot of people, there's some grinders out there that'll push through it, and if you touch the bar, it takes away
it's not a valid lift. Yeah. In everybody's eyes.
Yeah.
It's also one of the few times it's acceptable to be a loud person in the gym. Like when it's completely acceptable. If the guy is going for a max and you're spotting him, you better be hyping that guy up. I know it sounds counterintuitive to what we just talked about with the last tip, but if you're the guy that's getting spotted, you're on the bench, then yeah, you definitely want somebody to cheer you on and hype you up as you're going for it.
Yep, exactly. So the next tip we have kind of touches on that too. It's don't be afraid to ask questions. So most people, regular gym goers, are always are open-minded, willing to help out people because they understand that they started somewhere too, and there's probably someone in their life that influenced them and taught them and stuff, and they want to pass on that message. Especially through like, I've never really had a guy that I would consider like a big guy or whatnot that's been closed off and not willing to give advice. So I think just don't be afraid to ask questions, or like if you have a question about like a certain, like one of these tips we're talking about, like, hey, just ask questions. It's better be safe than sorry in some of these situations. And just not creating, you don't want to be labeled as that like frustrating newbie, because it's kind of hard to get that title taken away sometimes. So ask questions. Just ask questions. And then it's like we talked about with spotting, it's a good icebreaker. Like, hey, I see you lift this certain way. What kind of program do you, stuff like that? Like just small ice breaking ideas that can make your gym going experience much better.
Yeah, and another big thing too is like form. So if you're unsure of how to do an exercise and somebody's doing a certain exercise, it might be a good idea just to be like, hey, like I really want to learn how to deadlift, and I see that you're deadlifting. Could you just walk me through how you do it, like what your setup is? And you don't necessarily have to take up a lot of their time, and be respectful of their time. If they say, hey man, I'm sorry, I'm in a rush, I got to get to work, or I've got dinner plans or something, I don't have a lot of time here, then accept that answer and move on. Most people are going to take the time to help you if you ask. But if somebody's doing a lift that you don't know how to do or you're struggling with, maybe just pick their brain. Like walk me through like your setup, how you focus on your body when you move. Like what are your cues? Because an experienced lifter oftentimes will have a lot of cues, verbal cues that'll help out a newbie who's heard those things before. There's tons of different cues that you'll hear in the gym all the time that only make sense once you've been in there. You know what I mean? So don't be afraid to ask questions. Go find the bigger guys, the guys that you want to look like, whatever, and you can just pick their brains. Most of the time, they're going to help you. So tip number 8, and this is a huge one for most young men. I'm looking at you guys again. Do not ego lift. Don't ego lift. There's a few reasons why. Nobody wants to see a noob try to wreck his spine messing around with what they have no business touching. That's number one. I can't tell you how many times I saw this just today, actually. Some young bucks on the deadlift platform, and they're trying to learn how to pull. That's great. God bless them. And the first thing I see is got the cat back. We all have seen the meme, I'm sure, at this point, of the cat or the dog that's taking a crap while he's deadlifting. The back is rounded. There's no like tightness or core stability in the movement at all. And it's just, you're lucky that you're not walking with a limp after that. Honestly, it's really hard to watch, especially as somebody who is a very technical lifter and somebody who takes form and technique very seriously. It's very hard to watch somebody handle weight that or try to handle weight that they have just no business touching. And a lot of times it's obvious from across the gym. You look at the guy and you look at the weight on the bar and you're like, that's just not going to happen. And there's different ways of ego lifting too. Like if you're deadlifting, maybe your spine is rounded, but also there's like dropping the weight at the top of the movement, like you get to the top, and you drop it. And it's like, well, now you're risking wrecking the equipment and causing injury to yourself or somebody else. Like pick it up, set it down, be respectful. Same thing with the bench. If you're completely bouncing it off your chest every time, or using your chest as a trampoline, that's another sign of ego lifting. There's just lots of ways to cheat. I think another really great example is people that are doing the cheek curl. We all have seen the guy handling way too much weight, just wrenching their back and forth, trying to get that momentum and just cheat the bar up. Just take a little bit of weight off. Focus on your form. Focus on your technique. Think about practicing the movement. Don't think about trying to get super strong at the movement quite yet. Just practice the movement. Start light and controlled and just work on the technique. just take it nice and easy.
Exactly. Yeah, just bad experience because you just get hurt and it's just not good. Next one we talked about, we kind of touched on already, but get to know the regulars. The gym like regulars can be a really tight knit group, and
if you can
become part of that, and it's just going to make your gym going experience much better, because you're going to have people there to support you. They're going to know your goals, know something about you maybe in your personal life outside of the gym, and they're just going to be able to there to support you and kind of create like your gym family. That's one of the biggest things I miss about not going to a public gym is like the group of people that I became close to when I would see them every morning. So get to know people around you, ask questions, ask for spots. All those things kind of go into one, creating that relationship that can be really impactful with trying to achieve your goals, especially in the gym.
I'm personally kind of a gym hermit. Headphones go in. I don't really like to talk to anybody at the gym. But even I, as somebody who is very antisocial in the gym, even I have made friendships or connections or relationships with people that have been training in the gym for a long time. I've been training at the one gym for almost 8 years now, and there are people that have been there since the beginning. And after a while, you just kind of get to know each other. You spot each other, just talk about, hey, you got a meet coming up? Yeah, I did this or that. And, oh man, that's great. And it's, like you said, it's nice to have a community. It's nice to have people check in on your progress, maybe hold you accountable too, because they've seen your progress throughout the years. And it's, even as somebody who doesn't go to the gym for the social aspect, there are some social benefits to be had. So number 10, our last tip, we're going to try to wrap it up here. Just remember that everyone was a beginner at some point. And I think this is a really good way to wrap up the episode. Just every person you see, every person you admire for their physique or their strength, every one of them had to start off somewhere, either in a garage gym or in a high school gym, or maybe even after high school. Everybody started with just a bar. Most people started with the broomstick on their back trying to learn how to squat. It's okay. You don't have to rush. Rome wasn't built in a day. Just take it nice and easy. You don't have to worry about the perfect plan. You don't have to worry about looking stupid. Everybody looks stupid at some point. Nobody knows what they're doing at first. And try to make it something you enjoy. Don't make it this big, intimidating thing that you have to overcome every time you get to the gym. Just try to have fun with it. You'll make mistakes, and that's okay. As a newbie, we've all been there. So just relax, take it easy, enjoy the ride, and try to learn as much as you can.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best things is remember everyone started beginner, and remember why you started. Like, just remember that, and it makes people seem human, even guys that are squatting like 800 pounds. Remember that they started somewhere, and it's potential you can get there too. So
I think most experienced lifters remember that feeling. And that's why most experienced lifters are more than willing to help out the new guys if they have questions or if they seem lost or whatever. Almost always those guys are going to be willing to help them out because we've all been there. We were all beginners at some point.
Mm-hmm. So Zoom's about to kick us off here, guys. So I think that's about a wrap here. So always remember, no excuses,
no regrets. See you guys.
We'll see you later.